What up guys, it is Justice here and welcome back to RuneScape. So firstly, yes, there has been a lack of content over the past week and a half or so. There has been quite a PvM downtime right now in the game. No major updates really coming because right now the hype is just building up slowly for Telos and other huge PvM updates coming over this summer. So this video is going to be more about the future of PvMing more so than what is currently happening in the game. So we're going to talk about Telos, the new upcoming solo boss that's going to be reaching Gielinor and released in Gielinor within the month of June. My prediction is going to be within the last 2 weeks of June because I know that next Tuesday on the 14th of June, there will be a dev Q&A going through a lot more detail on this new boss. But for now, I'm going to take you through what we know about so far, which isn't a lot. It really isn't. I tried to ask as many questions as possible at Summer Summit, did not get any specifics really. And I guess they're hiding a lot of what is to come with this boss. But they have released some really important variables to do with this boss fight that will really influence how we approach it and the anti-farmable mechanics of this boss fight as well and how difficult the boss is going to be. There's been some hints on that. So we're going to walk through those little bits of important information. Maybe a few of you haven't even heard of this boss yet. I'm sure most of you have though. Also, we're going to cover Shattered Worlds, which is another piece of upcoming PvM content. This is something that is a complete surprise or has been a complete surprise to the entire community. They've kept it very, very quiet and close to their hearts, and this is something which they will be releasing as well over the next 3 months. And whilst we're on that topic, I'm just going to put it out there. Raids 2 will not be coming out this year. It will be an update within 2017. They have put that on hold. They've pushed that back. Some of the reasons behind that is a few variables. They want to make sure they get it right, I reckon. You know, there's 2 new bosses that are going to be released with Raids 2. They need to make sure it's right. I have a feeling they're going to implement a scale of difficulty into the next Raids update as well. That's going to take a lot of development. And also, as a community, there is a lack of people who actually partake in Raids. So they have other priorities and feel like the new solo boss, they want to put more focus on that for this year's release. And also this new update, Shattered Worlds. They want something that they feel is streamable, something which is just as fun to watch as it is to actually play it. So that is their aim anyway for the next for the rest of this year. They're hoping the new solo boss and the Shattered Worlds and any other small PvM updates will satisfy the PvMers out there and will, you know, whet their appetite, you could say, in preparation for future group bossing events that are coming out in 2017. So I thought I'd just put it out there. So anyone who's really into group bossing, you know, you're just going to have to hope that Raids 2 next year, which probably will be the only group boss release next year as well. We've just got to hope that that will be enough to satisfy that player base who are into all their group PvMing, because that's going to have to last you guys for at least a year and a half. For the rest of this year and next year. So let's hope it's really good, and hopefully them pushing it back will actually improve the quality of that update. I am, of course, disappointed in that news, as many other people will be who are into raiding. But like I said, the amount of people who actually do that is quite small. And a large influence on that, I feel, is because of the fact that it is endgame content and there is no scale in difficulty. That's something I really feel will be implemented. I got a strong sense, a good feeling whilst at the Summer Summit and speaking to some JMRs that is something that they're looking into implementing with the next raids. So that's good news for everyone who isn't doing raiding at the moment because of the difficulty and the struggle of getting into teams. Essentially, the difficulty scaling will be, there will be less mechanics within, let's say, the raid fight. There'll be less damage output from the bosses themselves, and it'll just be there'll be less rewards for partaking in it, but at least you get used to it and you start setting up teams, and then with those teams you would then go and challenge the harder difficulty for greater rewards and increased mechanics and damage. So that's the idea, and it should be good. But let's actually get into some details now about Telos, the new solo boss. Now this boss is a knight born from the Anima Mundi, who guards and protects the heart of Gielinor. So the heart of Gielinor, aka God Wars 2. This is going to be a boss that's going to be released within the Heart of Gielinor, within the dungeon, and it's going to be related to, it's going to be kind of related to the existing god monsters or the god generals within the dungeon in terms of the rewards, which I'll get onto later. But in terms of the boss itself, it's kind of its own entity, quite similar to Nex in God Wars Dungeon 1. They followed that logical theme. So let's have a look at this. Telos, it's going to be technically the hardest boss in the game. They want it to be more difficult than Nex, more difficult than Araxor, and of course more difficult than other solo bosses like QBD, which are well and truly outdated now. And it's going to be more difficult than solo Cowfight King as well eventually when you get it to higher enrage. So, all in all, it's going to be the most difficult boss in the game. But at first, you'll be able to kill it initially with, let's say, tier 80 armor, the God Wars Dungeon 2 armor. You'll be able to kill it initially, maybe a couple of kills or so with that armor. And later on, if you're a very experienced PvMer, you'll probably be able to use that armor fairly often. However, you're going to want to use your best gear for this boss in order to keep going and grinding it out, if that's what you like to do right now in the game, such as with Araxor. If you like grinding that out for hours on end to make as much money as possible, this is the boss for you. And if you're going to want to do that, you're going to need the best gear in order to keep going throughout the day. Why? Because it has no cap on enrage. It will continually enrage after every successful kill. I assume it's going to be after every successful kill and not every wave, but we do know there's going to be certain stages with this boss fight, and you're going to be fighting the boss down into the caverns of the Heart of Gielinor, and you're going to be able to really visualize this. You're going to really be able to see you're going to be able to see the direction that you're going to be going in throughout this boss fight and the different stages that you've got to come across. So right now, let's say in NXD and Araxor, when you go through path 2 and you run up the bridge towards the top and you can look down at Araxor coming up to you, you're going to get that real sense of feeling of the draw distances within the new game of RuneScape whilst using the NXD client. You know, this boss is made for NXD. I've heard he's going to hurl you across this environment, and he's going to hurl you down and down deeper into the Heart of Gielinor. Players will be able to choose the fight's difficulty as well, and this will affect the value of the rewards received. Now, there will be a sense of choice within this boss fight. The way I hear it is that you either choose before you start the fight, so you go in with less risk and therefore you get less rewards, or you can actually choose as you're fighting it. Now, it would be really cool if you could choose as you're fighting it and maybe stop fighting at a certain point and then decide to chicken out is the wrong word, but decide to rationally think, okay, I'm not going to be able to get through the next stage of this boss fight, so I'm going to leave now and just accept the rewards that I can get at this stage. That would be really cool. I'm not sure whether it's going to be implemented like that. All I know is that after you've fought it for like 2 or 3 hours and the enrage is higher, you will have a higher chance of better rewards. Now, I think that could work like the pheromone drop right now with Araxor, where you have a higher chance of receiving a pheromone drop worth 2.8 to 3 million right now at Araxor if you've got higher enraged. Therefore, if you're at 300% enraged and you're doing duo Araxor kills, that's another perk of why it's good to do duo, because you've got a higher chance of getting those pheromone drops, which are quite valuable actually and have sustained their price very well throughout the year. So let's get on to the actual rewards from Telos. Well, Telos will drop new god weapons based on the 4 factions and generals already present in the Heart of Gielinor. There will be weapons for each combat style as well, so magic, range, and melee, and so far we know the weapons tier will be higher than tier 85. And whilst watching a dev Q&A, Mod Osborne did re-emphasize that it definitely will be higher. And that makes me think it's definitely at least tier 90. And whether it's above that, I'm unsure about that. And there's a huge debate amongst the community around, should it be higher than tier 90? What impact will that have on the current game? Yes, it probably would kill a lot of existing bosses, but it depends, on my opinion, it depends on how rare that item's going to be. But yeah, I'm not going to speculate too much on the tier until we find out more information either the week before release or post-release. And I'll let you guys know my thoughts on it then. But I guess as long as I just want the rewards to be decent from this boss at least. But let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comment section. I mean, in terms of killing existing monsters in the game, I don't think new monsters should be scaled or, you know, should be balanced to content that is a couple of years old. I think games need to progress and evolve further, but obviously it has to be balanced to an extent. But when we were talking about balancing and stuff, that leads on nicely actually to another topic around augmenting tier 90 gear. We've had confirmation from the Ninja teams via Twitter and a few posts and teasers that tier 90 gear is going to become augmentable now. Let me make that more specific. Tier 90 power gear is going to become augmentable. augmentable. That's your malevolent, your serenic, and your tectonic. Now, at the moment, the tier 80 next gear is currently the best armor in the game for DPS and in a lot of cases tanking as well, due to the perks that you can put onto them. One of the most popular perks right now talked about is called Aftershock. But all in all, tier 90 gear is going to become augmentable. The way it's going to happen is you're going to implant a number of charges on there onto the armor, and once the armor reaches level 10 and those charges have run out, the armor will completely degrade to dust. And it will be very expensive to upkeep. But again, people out there who are currently augmenting their armors and currently perking up their armors, those people are probably going to augment their tier 90 armor pieces because they're investing money into it. Because in a lot of cases, the very best perks out there are more expensive than the armor pieces themselves. So yeah, now you're going to get an extra 10 levels of damage. But yeah, it's going to be good to have that option now in the game. It's something which has been long asked for, and the expense will definitely balance that out, I think, because it's going to be bloody expensive. But all in all, it should be really fun to add to the game, and that's going to help a lot of people with Telos. Now, I'm not sure when that's going to be released. I've heard, again, that's going to be released potentially this month in June. And if not, then it definitely will be out within the next couple of months, because they wouldn't post in-depth teasers like that if it wasn't close to release. With that being said, I'm actually waiting to perk up my range gear setup, and right now with my Torva and Vertis setup, the perks that I've got on there, it's probably worth me actually dissolving the gizmos and the perks themselves, because they're actually cheaper than my armor right now, I think, in most of the cases. But for a lot of people out there who have bought Biting 3 and had to break down Noxious components, or have got Aftershock and had to break down Zaros, that's Vindictor and Gorvet components, then they're going to be using the equipment dissolvers because their equipment is a lot cheaper than the perks themselves. So a lot of decision making to be made before augmenting your tier 90 armor, but it's definitely something which I'll be doing, and thank goodness that actually the tier 90 armor is now going to be more useful in the game in terms of linking to invention. It's something long asked for amongst the PvM community. And yes, this may impact the next prices a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure on the prices of God Wars 2 armor, but if it's around the same price as next armor right now, or a little bit more expensive, it might be worth just having that anyway, because it doesn't degrade, and then having your tier 90 perked up armor for when you're PvMing. Now, I don't really do both activities, so I'll only have the tier 90 perked up armor. But it's something which you think about, and yes, that would impact the next prices. All that Next really has going for it right now, once this update comes out, is the increased life point bonuses in comparison to the tier 80 armor. And I wouldn't even bother going for the tier 85 armor. I would perk up tier 90 and just go full out with that, because it'll help you so much more in PvM. So anyway, that is a topic that can take up an entire video in itself, but I'm cramming everything into one video because I feel like that's the best thing to do right now, because it's been a while. So let's move on to Shattered Worlds, something completely new. So, why am I playing through Rush of Blood in the background to this video? Well, that brings me on to Shattered Worlds, actually. The fact that Rush of Blood right now in the game, you fight through different waves of mobs. There are no mini-bosses involved, but you fight through different waves of mobs in this challenge from Morvran. Now, Shattered Worlds is a similar concept, but taken to a completely new level. You're going to be fighting through different mobs, but as well as that, you're going to be fighting through mini-bosses. You're going to be going through different portals, which will make you appear in different realms across Gielinor. These realms will be existing places which you recognize, such as Kethsey, for example, or Varrock, or Falador. Different places around the world, maybe a dungeon you'll appear in there. And when you appear in this place, this instance, you'll have to fight different mobs that appear, different mini-bosses to fight through in order to then get through the next portal. Now, everybody who partakes in this, at first on release date, you're just going to be racing against your own personal best times, but these times will be fed into a high score against your friends, but also a worldwide high score, and eventually going into some sort of Super Bowl in the end after like a month or two. They have not decided on timescales, but the very best people up there who can rush through these different portals and realms that have been set for, let's say, that week or that month, the very best people, they will be put into a Super Bowl, into a challenge of trying to race against each other. And to make this even more of a challenge, they are considering to make everybody start the Shattered Worlds off on a level playing ground. By that I mean you will all start off with the same gear setups. Now, whether that's also going to be combat stats, I'm not quite sure. Probably not, because that would be odd, but it will be a level playing field in terms of the stats and the weapons that you get when you first start off. So when you go through each realm and portal, you'll have to make decisions on whether you want to go and pick up the the next gear, or whether you want to unlock the next armor pieces. Maybe you unlock the next pieces of gear and the next tiers of gear once you go through the next realm. There's so much scope that they can do with this. They will be adding different resources within the different areas. So when you go through the portal, you'll have to decide whether to pick up different resources to help you complete that section quicker, or whether you're just going to DPS through it. There's going to be lots of decision making to be made, and I think this is something which is definitely going to be fun to watch as well as play. Later on down the line, they've got visions of having a ghost system where you'll actually be able to see the person who you're fighting against. Let's say there'll be another person doing the exact same route that you're doing, and you'll be able to see them either just behind you or just ahead of you, and that'll be like a ghost of their character and what they're doing exactly on their screen. And that'll be really interesting, and that really intensifies the entire experience. It's almost like a rally game that I used to play called Dirt 3, where you'd play it and you'd go on a rally track and you'd be racing against other people's times, and you'd actually see their cars, but a ghost version of them literally right under you, and you'd hear the engines, and it would just really intensify the fight and your competitiveness to win. So yeah, that does move me on to, this is going to be a very competitive gameplay. It's something very new. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. In terms of rewards, we have no idea. Maybe the rewards at the moment is purely high scores and leaderboards. If that's the case, will it really sustain itself? Let me know in the comments section what you think good rewards could be for this piece of content, and the thoughts so far on the information that I've gave you. This is literally all we know so far. So lots of scope, and this will be released within the next 3 months. As and when I find out more information, I'll be posting on Twitter and also making new videos on this, because I'm very excited to see how the community is going to take to this sort of content. Thank you very much for listening and watching today's video. It's very long, but there's been so much to cover. I really should have made 3 videos on this, but yeah, I just wanted to get it all crammed into one video. Hopefully you don't mind, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know by giving this video a like, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.